AOC insults Barack Obama. Sit down, sir. But his response shocks all of America. The air inside the CNN debate studio was charged, an invisible drumbeat thudding through the light rigs and polished floor, vibrating in the ribs of the audience. Rows of LEDs poured a hard white glow over the stage where two chairs faced each other like opposing cliffs. The set looked like modern glass and steel. Tonight it felt like flint and tinder. On Burr's side sat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, her hair drawn back, eyes bright and unwavering, a crimson blazer cutting a slash through the neutral background. At 36, she carried the rhythm of a movement in her voice and a hurricane's pressure behind her words. When she inhaled, the audience leaned in. When she stilled, cameras chased the quiet. Across from her sat Barack Obama. Not the podium strider of campaign nights, not the commander-in-chief amid flags and seals, but the quieter version America had learned to watch closely. Gray threaded his hair more thickly now. His tie was simple, his posture relaxed, his expression almost amused, like an old chess player watching a young prodigy set the board. If AOC brought kinetic electricity, Obama brought the hum of a deep transformer, steady, contained, powerful. Between them stood Anderson Cooper at a sleek podium, voice calibrated to a measured calm. Good evening. Tonight's debate, America's energy future, how we balance independence, affordability, and sustainability. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. President Obama. Thank you both for being here. Applause swelled, then dissolved as the rules rolled by. The country was watching, oil field families in the Gulf, rooftop solar installers in Phoenix, a grandmother in the Bronx paying two bills at once, electric and rent, and trying to decide which fear was bigger. Cooper turned to AOC. Congresswoman, you've championed an ambitious transition to renewables. Critics say it's too costly and disruptive to communities that rely on oil and gas. How do you respond? AOC leaned toward the mic. Anderson, the cost that terrifies me isn't the price of change. It's the price of doing nothing. Wildfires aren't partisan. Hurricanes aren't ideological. Heat waves don't check party registration. The Green New Deal, call it whatever you want, isn't just an emissions plan. It's a jobs plan, a public health plan, a dignity plan. Build wind. Build solar. Modernize the grid. Train workers where they are. If we're bold, we create millions of jobs and rescue a future our grandkids can actually live in. Scattered cheers. A few nods. A murmur. The camera cut to Obama. He pressed his palms together, thinking. President Obama, Cooper said, your response. Obama smiled, a quick half-smile that always managed to be gentle and sharp at the same time. Look, first of all, I appreciate the Congresswoman's passion. I've seen what climate change does. I've visited towns after floods. I've hugged people who lost everything but each other. So let's stipulate, this is real. And we have to act. But acting isn't the same as announcing. If you've spent time with a refinery worker in Port Arthur, a rig crewman out of Houma, or a trucker hauling pipe along I-10, you know this isn't abstract. It's a mortgage. It's a lunchbox and steel-toed boots and a kid's braces. You don't swap that out with a press release. You build a bridge that folks can walk across without falling. I support renewables. I also support not dropping people into the river while we're cheering for the other shore. His tone was conversational. The words carried like good timber. Some in the audience clapped. Others folded their arms, waiting for the next move. For 15 minutes they traded maps and metaphors. AOC spoke of moral urgency, environmental justice, a mobilization on the scale of World War II. Obama spoke of sequencing, reliability, affordability, the boring parts of heroism, where the lights stay on and the factory keeps a night shift. Her vision spiraled upward, his argument pressed outward, including the welders and wire pullers and linemen who rarely felt included in visions. Then Cooper asked the question that bent the air. We often talk about transitions in terms of carbon and cost. What about the human cost, job losses in fossil fuel communities, or climate disasters in vulnerable neighborhoods? How do you speak to both? AOC went first. Strong. Clear. This is the whole point. Pollution and climate impacts hit the Bronx, the bayous, and the black belt hardest. My plan puts the first dollars there. Local training. Local hires. Schools retrofitted. Homes weatherized. Rooftops solarized. We're not leaving anyone behind. We're finally showing up for the people we've ignored. Cheers rose. Hope warmed the room. Cooper turned. President Obama? Obama's hands rested lightly on the table. To me, climate justice and job justice are twins. You don't feed one and starve the other. The way we win hearts is simple. You tell a roughneck in Lake Charles the truth. Your job matters to me. Your paycheck matters to me. Your kids matter to me. I won't ask you to jump unless I've built something on the other side. That's not caution for its own sake. That's respect. The applause was broader now. Blue ties, red caps, young faces, old hands. And then the tremor. AOC leaned forward, impatience threading her voice. Mr. President, with all respect, that's the kind of incrementalism that got us here. You keep telling people to wait while the planet cooks. Obama's smile didn't reach his eyes. And I've seen what happens when leaders promise the moon and forget to build a rocket. A ripple of laughter. Two sharp minds. Two good lines. AOC pressed. Some folks have had their turn. It's time to move aside and let a new generation lead, one that doesn't flinch. She paused. The studio was so quiet a zipper could have been an alarm. Sit down, sir. Not shouted. Not sneered. Just flat, cold, cutting like closing a door. The words hit the room like a mis-thrown wrench. The audience stopped breathing. In the control room, a producer hissed, "Keep the cameras on him." On phones across the country, clips flashed into existence like struck matches. Hashtag "Sit Down Sir" trended before Anderson could blink. Obama did not blink. He looked at AOC the way a mountain looks at fire, acknowledging the heat, refusing to move. Cooper recovered first. Mr. President, would you like to respond to the Congresswoman's point about generational leadership? Obama leaned into the mic, voice soft enough that people had to lean forward. Well, I've been called a lot of things. Sir isn't the worst. Laughter, relieved, nervous, spilled across the seats. He didn't smile. He wasn't scolding, either. He was doing that other thing he did, making the room smaller, more honest. You want to talk about leadership? Okay. It's not volume. It's not virality. It's not the clever line that trends for 8 hours. Leadership is who you call after the hurricane when the cameras leave. It's where the dollars land and whose hands they land in. It's whether the single mom in Shreveport can keep her lights on while you rewire the grid. It's telling the truth about the pace of physics and the limits of transmission lines, so that hope doesn't turn into resentment. He turned slightly toward the crowd. Now, I'm not going to sit down. I'm going to stand up for the welders and rig hands, for nurses and teachers, for the climate scientist who just wants her graph to mean something to a city council. I'm going to stand up until we have a plan that lets everybody stand up with us. No fist. No flourish. Just a table tap, like a judge concluding a ruling. The applause started at the edges, older men with oil under their nails, college kids with stickers on their laptops, and rolled toward the center like a tide. AOC's jaw tightened. Her eyes flashed. She tried to seize the moment back. I'm not asking for slogans, Mr. President. I'm asking for courage. Name the plan. Name the projects. 6 months. Where does a laid-off refinery worker get hired, right now? Silence. The knife-edge question she had used on others, honed for this night. Obama nodded. Fair. He lifted a card. Not a prop. A list. Here's a short version of the bridge I'm proposing, and paying for. Screens behind them lit with clean, simple bullets. First, keep the lights on reliability standards. Any state moving faster than its grid can carry has to show backup capacity or a firmed power purchase agreement. Not sexy. Necessary. Second, rapid hire. Union-scale retrofit work. Every school and hospital under a certain efficiency threshold becomes a job site in 6 months. You don't have to invent a startup to hang insulation, replace boilers, seal ducts, rewire panels. You just need funding and a work order. We'll tie contracts to zip codes so Marcus in Lake Charles isn't told to move to Boston to hang drywall. Third, offshore build-out where the skills transfer. You know how to weld on a platform. You can weld a turbine tower section. We'll stand up fast-track certification that respects experience, not just classroom hours. I'm not handing folks a pamphlet that says, "Learn to code." I'm handing them a start date. Fourth, carbon capture at refineries that won't close tomorrow. I know, half the room hates that line. But climate math isn't a fan club. If capturing keeps paychecks coming while we scale transmission and storage, we do it, tightly regulated, publicly monitored. Fifth, community benefit agreements that are enforceable. If you take the federal dollar, you hire locally, you train locally, and the first 3 digits of the zip code show up on the payroll. He set the card down. That's the rocket. Now we can talk about the moon. The room erupted, not a single team, but a strange chorus of groups that usually boo each other. Some heard dignity. Some heard discipline. Some, for the first time, heard both. AOC lifted her chin. And the price tag? Obama didn't flinch. More than Congress wants to say on TV, less than fires and floods will cost us if we stall. We'll sunset fossil fuel tax breaks to fund rapid hire retrofits. We'll use green bonds that pension funds actually want because the returns are stable. We'll match federal dollars with local hiring commitments so the money cycles on Main Street instead of vanishing to a headquarters that can't find Louisiana on a map. She pressed again. And timeline. 6 months to first paychecks on retrofits, 18 for the offshore welding transfer pipeline to be at scale, carbon capture retrofits within 24 where they make sense, transmission corridors accelerated by standardizing permitting across states, if a line clears safety and environmental review, 1 federal stop clock. AOC's mouth opened, then closed. The audience could feel it. He hadn't just parried. He had sketched an answer that sounded like doors opening, not lectures closing. She rallied. But if we don't swing big, we'll miss the window. We need to electrify everything. We need to end the old industry's grip, now. Obama's gaze was steady. And I'm telling you the surest way to lose the window is to shove people through it faster than a body can move. That's how you get backlash that lasts a decade. We don't have a decade for the pendulum to swing back. We have a few years to make steady things look heroic. The debate surged. She talked asthma rates and red-line neighborhoods. He talked substations and transformer backlogs. She spoke of moral cliffs. He spoke of on-ramps. She swung like a boxer with a cause. He stood like a coach who knows how many yards remain and how many timeouts are left. Cooper tried to steer them to closing statements. The studio wasn't ready. Neither were they. AOC made one last push, voice low, less fiery, more human. I grew up breathing air that made kids wheeze. I watched a hurricane take out my Tia's basement. I am tired of hearing that the future will come later. Later is too late for a lot of people. Obama's reply was not polished. It was personal. My first apartment in Chicago had a radiator that rattled all night and a window that wouldn't seal. I've looked a laid-off dad in the eye and known that my best sentence wasn't going to make his next rent. I've seen neighborhoods drown and families rebuild with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. I know what later feels like. That's why I want a plan that doesn't require faith alone. A plan with pay stubs, not platitudes. Something softened. Not surrender. Alignment. 2 roads bending toward a bridge. Cooper finally threaded the needle. Final thoughts. AOC breathed in. We owe the future a spine. We owe the present a paycheck. We can do both. Obama nodded. We will do both, if we remember that people are not a line item, they're the whole point. The applause that followed wasn't team-colored. It was fuller, rounder, a little surprised at itself, like a room realizing it didn't have to choose between air and light. Off stage, when the red light blinked to black, AOC stepped forward first and offered her hand. Mr. President, she said quietly, the blaze banked to a glow, we disagree on pace. Not on purpose. Obama shook her hand. Congresswoman, purpose is why we showed up. Pace is how we stay. A junior producer in the wings wiped at her eyes before she realized what she was doing. A sound tech whispered, "Did we just see grown-ups?" Clips of the handshake hit the internet like soft rain after a dry summer. Hashtags fought and then merged. Hashtag stand up together. Hashtag bridge not cliff. But America would remember one moment above all, when a rising star told a former president to sit down, and he stood, not against her, but for the people neither of them could afford to lose. He didn't scold. He didn't spike the ball. He drew a map, named the mile markers, and invited everyone to walk. Days later, a school custodian in Tucson signed onto a retrofit crew at union scale. A laid-off platform welder in Cameron Parish enrolled in a fast-track certification stamped by his years, not erased by them. A public hospital in Newark replaced steam guts older than its surgeons. A grid operator in Oklahoma got a federal call that didn't say, "Hurry up," it said, "Here's the help." And somewhere in the Bronx, a grandmother opened an electric bill that didn't make her choose between cold groceries and cold light. The country kept arguing. It always would. But for a night on CNN, the argument sounded like a plan, one that asked America not to sit down, not to stand aside, but to stand together, long enough for hope to look like work and work to look like home. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more. Share your thoughts in the comments, and see you in the next video.